is the current workforce even earning a living wage? This is a question that has become more relevant in current times as more and more of these intergenerational comparison videos grow in popularity on the internet. What was possible 30 years ago with just one income from a single 9-to-5 job that didn't require you to make your entire existence about work just to move ahead? And what's possible now? To better understand this, let's start with the fundamentals. What exactly is a living wage? Simply put, it refers to the earnings required to cover basic expenses such as housing, food, and healthcare. Let's set aside technicality and view it as the amount that allows you not only to survive, but also to live reasonably comfortably, which is of course subjective to what you define as comfort. If we take ourselves back in time to the 1950s, often hailed as an era of work, a single income was sufficient to support a family, buy a house, and even afford a car for the family. Imagine Joe, a worker. He clocks out at 5 p.m., heads home, and voila! His paycheck covers his mortgage payments and groceries for the week. It even leaves room for a weekend getaway. Life was good back then. Many believed they were on track to achieving what was coined the American dream. In those days, Joe earned $5,000 per year, a sum that could secure him a home for $10,000 while leaving room for purchasing a car for $1,500 along with groceries for an entire week, priced at just $20. Now let's fast forward to today. Joe's yearly earnings considering inflation would almost amount to $50,000. However, the question remains, can he still maintain a similar standard of living? Here's the catch. As income has increased over time, so has inflation. The cost of living has soared. Presently, Jake, who is comparable to Joe in terms of circumstances, earns an income of $50,000. The cost of living has risen significantly, with a home now priced at $200,000, a car at $25,000, and groceries for a week costing around $100 or upwards of that. This widening gap between income growth and expenses is causing concern. Jake used to have a paycheck that seemed sufficient. Now he's having trouble keeping up. He's finding himself in need of more jobs just to make ends meet. For many in today's workforce, the American dream doesn't feel so much as a dream as it does like a memory. Now let's look into the numbers. Over the decades, income has been growing at a rate of approximately 2% per year. Not bad, you might think. However, inflation has been galloping ahead at an annual rate of 3%. This means Jake's purchasing power is being destroyed faster than he can even utter the words living wage. A 1% difference might not seem like a lot, but the power is in the multiplicity, which will only grow over time. The consequences are clear. Many individuals find themselves backed into a corner, compelled to take on multiple jobs or burdened by student loan debts and credit card obligations. The dream of owning a home becomes like a luxury rather than an attainable goal, while retirement seems like nothing more than an illusion. It's undeniably challenging for this generation, especially as competition in the workforce has made it mandatory to work extra hard for higher paying roles. You need an expensive degree, work experience going back years, and maybe even some networking prowess or connections. And no, that's not for the CEO position, that's for the entry-level analyst position. Doesn't this seem like a bit of a setup? Much of this generation might not have hopes of paying off said expensive student loans because not everyone will get into the career trajectories that allow them to do so. This can also be characterized in the life of a student, Lisa. She's juggling student loans, credit card debt, and the high cost of living. Diving back into the numbers, we noticed that in the last 3 decades, while the average yearly earnings have grown by 2%, the rate of inflation, as mentioned before, has surpassed it at 3%. This small difference holds implications. Jake, who earns a salary of $50,000, is gradually losing his purchasing power every year. What costs $100 in the year now amounts to $103. But over time, it accumulates and leaves Jake with less real income to cover his expenses. Apart from the inflation rate, the prices of items have skyrocketed. Housing prices have surged by 200%, healthcare costs have doubled, and education expenses have tripled. These figures represent more than numbers. They depict the mounting challenges that today's workforce is facing. A very real example of the widening gap between inflation and income growth is the 50-30-20 rule. I have somewhat of a theory that when this was invented in the early 2000s, and bear with me, I haven't been gracious enough to look deeply into the numbers on this. But again, I do have one of those full-time jobs like Joe and Jake, so there's a limited amount of time I can spend on the research for this. It was more attainable back then. Now, if we were to break down how the average person spends their income, it probably tilts more towards 60 on necessities and continues to grow over time. Another real example is the culture of shared accommodation in bigger cities today. Joe in the 50s could afford to comfortably pay his mortgage on a full house each month, but Lisa currently has to room with 3 strangers if she wants to save anything in a month. However, those who have experienced navigating bustling cities like New York or London would tell you a story. They would confirm that earning $32,000 per year for a single income household in such an environment is quite meager indeed. This being an issue in countries with the largest GDPs in the world tells you just how bad it could be when mid to lower income economies are looked into. Despite the passing of time, it seems like inflation has become the order of the day when it comes to these wages. Picture living in a world where everything is getting more expensive except for your paycheck. It's like trying to catch a moving train while standing still. But hey, who needs money for life's necessities anyways, right? For a change in their circumstances, several workers have over the years taken strike actions to see if their demands for better pay can be met. In a developing country like Nigeria, the average salary for a senior lecturer is slated at 265,000 naira, or approximately $265 per month before taxes. For a family of 4, this lecturer has to prioritize his responsibilities as a provider over anything else. His kids' school fees, the food to be consumed daily, transportation, rent if he doesn't have his own house, healthcare, and unforeseen hazards. When all these are put into focus, it can be seen that little to nothing is left for his savings at the end of the month. And this is the life of a top earner in the 9-to-5 sector in one of the largest GDPs in Africa. So, how do you think it is for the other workers living on a minimum wage of 65,000 naira in not so rich countries? Not so easy. The wage increase to inflation differential is a global issue, one with a fundamental question at the heart of it. What is a living wage? What does it mean to live? So a living wage should allow you to just survive. And if that's it, then maybe problem solved. But if it means more than that to live, then something probably needs to happen soon. Anyways, that's it for today's essay. Leave an essay of your own in the comments if you'd like, and don't forget to subscribe for more thought-provoking essays. Thank you for joining me, and if you found this video informative, please show your support by giving it a thumbs up, and until next time.